And memory text is Genesis 37:19, and it's from the New King James Version, and it goes like this: Then they said to one another, "Look, this dreamer is coming." And so this lesson study for this week has been, I think it produces a lot of opportunities that we can really learn and pattern our life after some great people. I think Joseph was one of the most admired people in the Bible. And I say that, and then I start thinking about some other people, and they're just as important, or just as awe-inspiring and used of God. So maybe I shouldn't have any favorites, and maybe it would be the best approach. But I want to start on Sabbath afternoon's lesson, and it talks about the story of Joseph and how it covers the last section of the book of Genesis, from his first dreams in Canaan, that's found in Genesis 37, 1 through 11, to his death in Egypt, Genesis 50, verse 26. In fact, Joseph occupies more space in the book of Genesis than does any other patriarch. Although Joseph is just one of Jacob's sons, he is presented in Genesis as a great patriarch like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you know, I before we go on, the Bible is full of all kinds of information, inspiration, a lot of wonderful things you could say about the Bible. But one of the things that I notice is that God doesn't leave out the portions that I don't particularly care about. I don't particularly care about the things that happened, that, like Tamar, and some of those incidences that show a bad light on people, and we just don't understand how God could allow this to happen, but he does. And so we take everything in the Bible and we sort it out. Continuing on Sabbath afternoon, at the last part of it says, in this week's study, we will focus on the early life of Joseph. He is Jacob's favorite son, who is ironically nicknamed the Dreamer, which means literally master of dreams, implying that he is an expert of dreams. This title fits him very well because he not only receives, understands, and interprets prophetic dreams, but he also fulfills them in his life as well. And the last sentence there is what I want to emphasize. In these chapters, we will see again that God's providence is affirmed, despite the evil and wickedness of the human heart. And that is very important to me, that God is omniscient, he's omnipresent. There's other descriptive words that describe and fit God, but he's also over all things. His will be done. And so keeping that in mind as we go through the lesson, I think it's important that we understand that God's will be done. And whatever man might do, God has to deal and allow those things to happen for his agenda to be fulfilled. On Sunday's lesson, June 5, family troubles. And we're looking at Jacob. And we look at what happens with the family dynamic in Jacob's life and his family. So beginning at the top, it says, Jacob has at last settled in the land, while Isaac was only a stranger. The text also says that Jacob dwelt in the land, Genesis 37, verse 1. Yet it was then, as we were settling into the land, that the troubles began, this time from inside the family. The controversy does not concern the possession of the land or the use of it as of a well. It is mainly spiritual. So let's look at Genesis 37, verses 1 through 11. And would like to have somebody read verses 1 through 11. Gordon, do you have that? Would you please read it for us? I apologize for my near frog-like voice this morning. I don't know why it's acting up like this, but maybe if I get mad and start yelling, it'll settle down. But anyway, yes, go ahead, Gordon.
Genesis 37.
1 through 11.
And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob, father Jason. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto their father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all of his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could
Okay.
not speak peaceably unto him.
Could we hold up right there for a second, please? In the beginning here, when Gordon was reading, verse 2, I'll have to read the whole verse here. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, feeding his flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah. I don't know if that's probably not the right pronunciation. His father's wives. What do we see there that lends itself to the problems that we will be talking about? Anybody have a comment about Ken? Okay. Hold it just a minute. Ken?
There was a multitude of problems with this. 4 wives trying to raise 12 sons. And, of course, each wife would have a different personality, maybe different sins, character, whatever. And so, maybe 3 of the wives would be off. So one wife would be in charge of all 12, and she would have different ideas of how they'd be raised than maybe someone else would have. They would transfer to others. So it led to mass confusion. And
Right.
it was absolutely mass confusion. I can't even imagine.
Right.
One father.
Before we go any further, could I ask a question? Is it God's will that this happened this way?
No.
Okay. That's very important, isn't it? It's very important. It's just as important today as it was back then. So there's the first problem that we see. Yeah. And Linda, you had a comment?
Well, similar to Ken's, the fact that Joseph was only a half-brother, and that his mother was the one that Jacob loved more than the mothers of the other sons. I mean, like Ken said, there's a multiplicity of problems here, all working together.
Yeah. We can even go on back further to Jacob and Esau, can't we? And talk about that. And
I think Jacob would have learned from like his dad,
yeah.
picked a favorite, but they just passed that right along.
I'm not saying that Jacob didn't learn. I think he probably did learn. But see, Jacob in his young years, he was sin against his father. First off, he was kind of deceived Esau, took advantage of it. Then he flat out lied to his father. And then when he got to Laban, all of a sudden, instead dishing it out, he received
Mhm.
his own
Mhm.
fruits, you know.
Mhm.
So now, all of a sudden, he's got two wives right off the bat, you know, because of his own sins.
Right, yeah. So could you say what goes around comes around in a certain,
Do unto others as you would have others to do unto you, or something like that.
right, yeah.
What I don't understand is, why would a man want to have four bosses?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Linda, quit shaking your head.
Unless he was a real alpha type male.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
The other two wives were as a result of the competition with the first two,
Right.
Yeah.
to try to have more kids.
yeah. It's a wonderful story to learn from, but it's hard to really understand and fit into an understanding of this is the Bible. This is what this is our book. This is God's word. But yet, then again, God doesn't sweep under the rug the bad things that happen. If we have the right attitude, then I think we can sort it out.
This is one of the reasons we can, it's one of many reasons, but this is one of the reasons we can have confidence in the scriptures. The fact that God does not leave out the defects of the heroes of the Bible.
Yeah, exactly.
That indicates this is a true record of what happened.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the writer would tend to gloss over the weaknesses.
Mhm.
So it gives great confidence.
And there's, as I was looking over the lesson throughout the week, I thought, there's some other giants in the Bible that Joseph is one that is very prominent in my mind. I've always liked the character Joseph because when you get to the point where he's on that caravan and he's headed to Egypt, he grows up real fast, and then his character is just wonderful from there on out. So, Ken, did you have something else?
So Joseph has 10 brothers. Well, I guess he has, maybe he has 11 this time. Anyway, so why was it that Joseph was so much different than his other brothers?
All right.
What made the difference? I mean, I don't know about Benjamin, but all the 10 brothers were just not as evil as you could get. I mean, there's all kinds of other things besides the fact that they sold Joseph into slavery. There's other things that happened with these brothers. So what made the difference with Joseph?
Okay. That's a fair question. Does anybody have any input? Bill?
I would say two things. I'm not an expert on children at all, but he was a mother's favorite.
His father's favorite, for sure, yeah.
Too, since it's the only one she had, basically.
Yeah, so, and then again, God, for his own particular reasons, seems just like people to be filled with the Holy Spirit and converted. And so Joseph was more in tune with spiritual things, apparently because he was receiving dreams of God.
Mhm.
And at what age?
Who knows? I don't know.
What, 17? He was 17.
But how do you know what happened before then?
He probably dreamt that before.
No,
Because it says,
It starts out in Genesis, says when Joseph was 17, then the dreams come just after that. So, and we all assume that he went to Egypt when he was 17 too. So things happen pretty quickly around 17.
but it's not the fact that some brothers would have two children and one would be a little trouble and the other would be a little angel. So that's kind of like, there's no explanation except perhaps the sort of God.
Well, okay.
Human character, I guess, or whatever.
Well, the thing I was thinking about is this, that up to age 17, parents are so instrumental in the development of the child in so many different areas. So his mother must have been very close to him, and we know that his father was, because he favored Joseph. So that those early years of child rearing had something to do, had a lot to do with the character of Joseph. I don't see how you can get around that. But now the other boys in the family, I don't know. It had to do something with their mothers, and like we were talking about a while ago, the bickering back and forth, and who's in charge, all the jealousies that go into play in families when the children are growing up. So I think probably you're right, Bill, but there's probably some spiritual input into this that we don't really, it's not really told to us here. But it goes back again, as far as I'm concerned, to God's agenda. It all is in God's hands in a certain respect. So we just move down the line, and God's agenda is going to be put forth. It's going to happen. So.
Joseph was definitely a favorite of God more than the other 10.
Well, wasn't he crowned king when he was younger years?
But is that fair?
17?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he was crowned king,
17.
but I didn't know his age.
When they had the dream.
He was in his thirties when he became
Yeah.
the ruler of Egypt, so he wasn't king.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Is that fair for God to pick people out?
Okay.
One more than the other?
Yes, it is fair, because even when you're hiring someone to work for your company, you pick out the one that you think is going to fulfill the duties that you need to have done. But so, yes, it is fair.
But it's not arbitrary.
It's
No.
arbitrary.
I don't think it's arbitrary.
No, I don't think so either.
There was something in Joseph that was different,
That responded to God.
that responded to God. And so I think we always have to mediate that idea. That God's not arbitrary. You didn't just say, well, I'm
You
just.
know, the thing is that Joseph was the son of the woman he loved, the first son. Now, I don't know how many years she spent with him. I'm not sure how soon Benjamin was born. You know?
I can't remember.
It couldn't have been very long, but even so, it was her firstborn son. And my guess is that she may have put some extra effort into making sure he was trying right after seeing all of the other stuff.
Mhm. Okay. Again, it's that early training
Yes.
and the care and the dedication that,
You know, it says too that, let's see, I'm trying to find it there. It's on the Sabbath lesson.
well, let me start.
There was one, however, of a widely different character. The older son of Rachel, Joseph, whose rare personal beauty seemed to reflect the inward beauty of mind and heart. Maybe, he inherited something.
Mhm. Okay.
He was totally opposite of the other sons.
Reading here on Sunday's lesson says, from the very beginning, we understand that Joseph, the son of Jacob's old age, enjoyed a special relationship with his father, who loved him more than all his brothers. Now what it's getting into is the favoritism, which is not good. Okay? I don't know. We expect a lot sometimes from people in the Bible, but this is reality. People aren't perfect. None of them were perfect. So this happened, And, but yet, it was allowed by God to happen. Let me continue on. It talks about the tunic of many colors, a prince's garment, an indication of Jacob's secret intention to elevate Joseph, Rachel's first son, to the status of firstborn. The future will indeed confirm Jacob's wishes because Joseph eventually will receive the rights of the firstborn. No wonder then that Joseph's brothers hated him so much and could not even engage in peaceful conversations with him. Furthermore, Joseph would bring bad reports to his father about any reprehensible behavior from his brothers. No one likes a snitch. And that's true. You know, how do we explain this?
Spud doesn't put that in such kind of terms. She puts it in the fact that Joseph, his character was such that he couldn't stand to see his brothers sinning. It wasn't that he was trying to be a snitch. He just his character was so pure that he couldn't. You know, I always grew up. People telling me, they said, well, Joseph was a spoiled son. And after I studied this lesson, and started studying this lesson, I said, no, he wasn't spoiled. His character was such that it was different from everyone else. There wasn't, in this, there's a little bit further on in the lesson where it says that because of their father's attention on Joseph, that he did have some character defects that got straightened out during this imprisonment. Slavery. But he wasn't spoiled because when the father asked him to do something, he went and did it.
Yeah.
With no complaints.
Okay.
It felt like a spoiled character.
It sounds like the Spirit of God being in Joseph.
Yeah, I think there was much less Joseph himself here that bears responsibility for his brother's reactions to him. I think it was Jacob that bears responsibility. I mean, I got a kick when I read this. I laughed out loud this week when I read this sentence that you read up there about Jacob giving him this coat of many colors, an indication of Jacob's secret intention to elevate Joseph. Secret? I think he was telegraphing it for the whole family, the whole clan to see. I don't think there was anything
Yeah.
secret about it.
Right.
It wasn't a wise thing to do.
Right.
Even though Joseph did have the right character to receive that birthright, you don't telegraph that like that.
No, that.
Jacob that played favorites. I don't, like Ken said, I'm not sure it was so much that Joseph was a spoiled child as it was that Jacob was a spoiled parent, so to speak.
Jacob was acting, out of his old age, okay? Maybe this we can throw in here and kind of understand why things happen somewhat. Okay. Now, further down on Sunday's lesson, it says, so when Joseph shared his dream, suggesting that God would put him in higher position and that they, his brothers, would bow before him, they hated him even more. Okay, I can understand that. The genuine prophetic character of the dreams was even ratified by the fact that they are repeated. Although Jacob openly rebuked his son, he kept this incident in his mind, meditating on its meaning and waiting for its fulfillment. The implication is that perhaps deep down he thought that there might be something else to these dreams after all. He was right, however much he couldn't know it at the time. So let's go to Matthew 20, verses 26 and 27. Does somebody have that and just read those for us? Because at the bottom of the page here it says, read Matthew 20, 26 and 27. What crucial principle is revealed here, and how can we learn to manifest it in our own lives, what it teaches? Okay, go ahead, Margaret.
But it shall not be so among you, but whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. And whosoever will be the chief
Okay. That fits the Lord Jesus Christ perfectly, doesn't it? Does it fit anybody else?
For those who do good to others. And instead of having somebody else do bad to you, you shouldn't do bad to them.
Okay. All right.
Minister means meet the needs. And servant would be resentful.
Okay.
That would certainly be Jesus.
Right.
What we need.
Monday, the attack on Joseph. However horrible the events that were to follow, they're not hard to comprehend. To be in that close proximity to, and even to be related to, someone who you hated would inevitably lead sooner or later only to trouble, and it did. And now we're looking at Genesis 37, verses 12 through 36 here, and I didn't allow Gordon to finish those verses, but the brothers hate Joseph because they are jealous of God's favor, a favor that will be confirmed in each step in the next course of events. When Joseph has lost his way, a man finds him and guides him. When Joseph's brothers plot to kill him, Reuben intervenes and suggests that he be thrown into a pit instead. It's hard to imagine the kind of hatred expressed here, especially for someone of their own household. And I agree with that statement. I cannot, I had two brothers growing up and a sister, and we didn't always get along so well. Being out on the farm and we had to work a lot, still we were kids, still we weren't perfect little angels. We got into squabbles and this and that and the other, and never thankfully come to one beating up on the other. And that's why I asked the question, or I'm thinking, circumstances must have been so terrible leading up to this that the brothers could actually do this. And Ken, go ahead.
I don't know how many of you read Patriarchs and Prophets on this. That is just a fantastic chapter. Anyway, one of the quotes that says, as the lad stood before his brothers, his beautiful countenance lighted up with a spirit of inspiration. They could not withhold their admiration, but they did not choose to renounce their evil ways and the hated purity that reproved their sins. The same spirit that actuated Cain was kindled in their hearts.
Yeah.
So it's like the text not says family, your family is the first to reject.
Right. Yeah.
And that's true with Joseph. And of course, who rejected Jesus?
Yeah. It's his family.
Family
Yeah.
rejected him first.
Yeah. This incident, like you say, I think you see in people's lives who are close to God, you see something in their lives like it's a light that's glowing. And I'm not saying it's a visible light, but it's something about the character of righteous people that gets in your craw if you're evil. And it seems like you have no recourse except to act out. And that's exactly what happened. There's probably a lot of incidents in the Bible that are like this, where people are just beside themselves with anger, and they can't help themselves but to be satanic and evil and act out in response to the good character of someone. Okay. The question here, I'm looking at on Monday, says, what does this teach us about how dangerous and evil, unregenerate hearts can be, and what they can lead any of us to do? Would anybody like to comment about that? An unregenerate heart, how it can lead out, how it can lash out.
The only thing I can say is, about the whole story of Joseph, I see glimpses from the micro visions or whatever of the life of Christ. It's the same thing. Thousands of years later, there's an inherent something in humanity or the creation of God that good is good, evil is evil, conflict. And the conflict is almost always the same. Evil will attack the good. And the good is like, I'm talking about an intrinsic kind of good. You've seen people, I don't know, I grew up in high school, in high school, there was a kid that brought a Bible to school in high school. And I saw that, well, that guy's different, It was just kind of, I didn't have animosity toward him, but I thought, he's not quite normal. Like the rest of all the hooligans I went to high school with. So, anyway, it's just something that's very enmity with God.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Yes.
And even outside of moral or ethical, spiritual circumstances, there's this principle in human beings that seems to operate anything. Anybody who's different. I mean, most of us probably can recollect that even with children in school, for example, the smartest kid in class is usually resented by the others.
Mhm.
And it's like there's a need to put somebody that we put, whether they are better than us or not, who they perceive, if they're smarter than us, or maybe they're better than us, or whatever. If we perceive that, there seems to be this need to put them down so that they can come down at our level.
Right.
And that's sin.
That's evil.
That's
That's evil in our hearts, yes.
And the only other thing I would say is that when you intentionally walk in sin, when you are intentionally being, you give into those inclinations and you walk and your character becomes evil, then what you're really doing is you're giving yourself progressively more and more into Satan's control. And when Satan controls you, you can do anything. I remember a pastor, decades ago, I was a teenager, and I'll never forget at least the gist of the sermon, that he was talking about Adolf Hitler, who was one of the Nazi war criminals that the Jewish state of Israel finally caught up with in the 60s, I think it was.
Yeah, Argentina.
Yeah, in Argentina, yeah. And brought him back, and he was eventually hanged for war crimes. And this pastor was saying, we think what a terrible person, which he was. He said, there's an Adolf Eichmann in every one of us. If the circumstances were a certain way, and if we yielded to our inclinations, the devil could turn any one of us into an Adolf.
Right. Yeah.
I never forgot that.
Yeah.
We don't like to think of that because it offends us.
Yes.
No, I would never be like, I would never be that evil. I'm sure these brothers didn't start out, well, we don't like this Joseph, we're going to just kill him. It was growing and festering, because they continued to walk in their ways.
Right.
The amazing thing is about all this is that God is in control of everything. The kid that went to high school, this public high school, carrying a Bible, he was courageous. Nobody else would do that. And God reveals to those that have this animosity for him, their own evil hearts. Why don't like that kid? I don't know. I don't think it's his thing. I don't think it's his choice. And then also for the kid that's carrying the Bible in his same thing.